What if I told you that there were 4 areas that were contributing to your communication breakdowns and that solving them could improve every single one of your conversations? By the end of this video, I'm going to explain to you what those 4 areas of emotional intelligence are so that you can understand them and be well on your way to having more productive, effective conversations nearly every single time. I help my clients figure out how to stop having the same communication problems over and over again. And I've spent the last decade or so of my career figuring out how to delicately but successfully say hard things. Communication isn't just about the things that you say. It isn't just about the words that come out of your mouth or even the body language that you're using when you're speaking to people. Emotional intelligence is a huge part of communication. There are 4 main areas of emotional intelligence that I'm going to talk about today. And the first one is self-awareness. Your awareness of yourself is a key component to having effective, productive conversations. How good are you at recognizing your own emotions? As you're having a conversation, can you recognize what emotions are coming up for you? Can you recognize what it is that you are feeling when you're speaking and talking to somebody? Can you name what feeling you are feeling? Can you describe the emotions that are coming up for you? And I'm not talking about those instances when we say to somebody in the middle of an argument or a conversation, you made me feel X or you made me feel Y. Those aren't actually feelings, right? There's a difference between you made me feel, insert something here, and I felt sad when you didn't show up on time. Or I felt angry when you didn't unload the dishwasher, right? You made me feel angry is not the same thing as I felt angry when you did or didn't do X, Y, or Z. Now that's a topic for a different video, that you made me feel versus that I felt, insert something here, when you did insert something here. Those are 2 different things. But right now, I want to focus on the self-awareness piece. So can you recognize the feelings that come up for you when you're in the middle of a conversation or when somebody says something or does something? Recognizing what you are feeling in the moment, being able to name what you are feeling in the moment, those are incredibly key skills and a huge part of our own self-awareness. Our awareness of what's going on literally in our bodies and in our minds. To add on to that, can you recognize when you are starting to feel some type of way or when you are starting to feel triggered when you're in the middle of a conversation, when you're in the middle of speaking to somebody? Can you recognize the signals that your body is giving off that indicate you're starting to feel angry or sad or upset or stressed out? The ability to recognize those feelings and then to regulate them for ourselves is another piece of self-awareness. Can we regulate our own emotions? If you want to have a really important conversation with somebody, be that your boss, your spouse, your partner, your child, your parent, anybody, if you want to have a conversation about a tough topic, can you recognize when you are getting triggered? Can you recognize when you are starting to get a little bit heated? And then can you regulate or recognize the fact that, okay, maybe I need to take a step back. Maybe I need to tap out. Maybe I need to go for a walk for 5 minutes. Maybe I just need to take a break for 2 minutes to take some deep breaths, go for a little walk, calm myself down. Can you recognize what it is that you are feeling? And then can you take steps on your own to regulate those feelings? A big part of conversation and a big part of communication is our ability to recognize our own emotions and then our ability to regulate those emotions for ourselves. If you can recognize that you're starting to get triggered, if you can recognize that you're starting to have some big feelings in the moment, if you can recognize that those might be coming up for you, and then you can take a step back or take mitigating steps before you start yelling, before you want to just lose it. Can you recognize when you're starting down that path and then take steps to self-regulate before you get to that point? Your ability to do those things, to recognize your own emotions and then to regulate them is a huge part of being able to have a successful, productive, effective conversation. So that's step one, our self-awareness of what's going on with us. Then we get to part two, and part two is our awareness of others. So this is the second piece that's really important, our awareness of others. And when I say awareness of others, what do I mean by that? What am I talking about? I'm talking about how aware and in tune you are to the emotions and the feelings of the other person or the other people that you are communicating or in conversation with. Can you recognize if they are about to lose it? Can you recognize if they are about to get really, really upset? Can you recognize if they are about to get so emotional that logic is flying out of the window and they're not going to be able to have a rational conversation? Are they about to become flooded? Are they about to become triggered? Are they about to become so overcome by their emotions that they're not then able to have a logical, productive, successful, effective conversation? If you can recognize that, then you can take steps, hopefully before it gets to the point where they're just so overwhelmed that you can suggest, maybe let's take a break. Maybe let's take 5. Maybe let's just stop talking for a minute, right? So that we can each take a moment to collect ourselves and then continue the conversation. Basically, can you recognize if the other person is about to reach the point where the conversation is going to completely deteriorate because they are so overwhelmed with their emotions? If you can take steps to mitigate it. And if you're looking at this video right now and saying, oh my goodness, I have no idea, I can't tell, I never really even thought about it, that is okay. But now that you are aware and now that you know, you can take steps in the future to become more aware of what's going on with the other people that you're having conversations with. So we can work to become not only aware of our own emotions and recognize when we're about to get flooded or overwhelmed or triggered, but we can also work to become aware of others' emotions so that we can recognize the signs that they're about to get overwhelmed or flooded or triggered. And then we can take steps to make sure the conversation does not go off the rails, that the conversation does not completely deteriorate. We can tap out, we can take a break, we can decide to table it and then maybe come back to it later if we're able to recognize what's going on with ourselves and have that level of self-awareness. And then we're also able to recognize what's going on with others and have an awareness of them. We can take steps to ensure that we're able to have effective, productive conversations so that nobody is being so overwhelmed and flooded and triggered that the conversation just completely goes off the rails and it ends up deteriorating into an argument where people are saying things that they don't want to say and we're having big reactions. We can take steps to make sure we mitigate that and hopefully prevent it from happening. But in the event that a conversation does go off the rails or something happens when we're communicating with somebody that we didn't want to happen or that we didn't expect to happen, can we then adapt and be flexible to those changing circumstances? That brings us to the third thing that I want to emphasize, and that is adaptability and flexibility. So this is the third piece that I want to highlight. How adaptable are you? How flexible are you? What do I mean by that? Let's say that you have a very specific list of things that you want to bring up with your boss in the weekly check-in that you have with them. You've got 5 bullet points you want to discuss. You've got an hour on their calendar. It's been scheduled. You know what you're supposed to discuss when you go in there, and you know that you have enough time in that hour to cover everything on your list. But something comes up. Your boss gets called away, or your boss gets a phone call in the middle of your meeting when you've just covered point 2 and you're ready to get to point 3, and your boss says, oh, no, we've got an emergency. We're going to have to continue this later. How do you handle that? Can you be adaptable and can you be flexible and say, okay, great, we'll talk about it later, and then not let the fact that you only got through 2 of the 5 points that you wanted to get through completely throw you off, right? You got through 2 of the 5, and are you able to then be flexible and adapt and then take whatever conversation you had about those 2 points, file it away, and then make sure that you've got the next 3 points somewhere so that you can bring them up the next time you're able to meet with your boss. Are you able to work on and ensure that the change in circumstances, the surprise thing that popped up, can you work on and make sure that things like that do not completely derail you? Can you work on being able to adapt and be flexible to changing circumstances? There's a lot of situations that we're going to encounter in life where things do not go according to plan. There's a lot of instances where we can have something completely well thought out, and then that needs to be thrown by the wayside because something new came up. When things like that happen, are you able to adapt? Are you able to be flexible? And are you able to go with the flow and run with it if things change and there's surprises that come up that you weren't necessarily prepared for? If you're not able to do that right now, or if you're not able to do that in every single instance and every situation, that is okay. But we need to be aware of the fact that we should be working towards being adaptable and flexible so that we can then ensure we're not completely derailed and thrown off when surprises come up, when life happens and circumstances change. The same is true in our personal lives. If we're having a conversation with our spouse or our partner or our child or our parent, and it's a potentially pretty tough conversation, and we have a couple of difficult things that we want to bring up and that we want to talk about, we've set aside time, we've prepared to have this difficult conversation. What happens if you start talking about the first point and either one of you gets really, really emotional or starts having some really, really big feelings about just the very first point that you wanted to discuss? It's okay if you then need to adapt and be flexible and say, all right, I had 2 or 3 points that I wanted to discuss, but clearly this first one is going to take up a lot of our time and a lot of our energy. Let's focus on just that one for right now. That's okay. But being able to be flexible and adapt and not think that the conversation is a failure because you only got to 1 point on your list is a key thing that we need to make sure we are working towards. Because if you only got to the first point on your list, that's okay. You were still having a discussion and able to talk about the first point on your list, and then you can have a discussion or a conversation about the next few points at another time. We want to make sure that we aren't viewing conversations or discussions in a negative light or as failures because we didn't get through everything that we'd planned to get through during those conversations. You still got through what you were able to get through, and that is a good thing. And then we can adapt and be flexible and bring up and talk about the other things at another time. This brings me to my fourth piece of the emotional intelligence ecosystem that I want to discuss today, and that is resilience. When I say resilience, what do I mean? I'm talking about how well you bounce back, how well you repair, how well you handle being derailed, how well you handle changes to the plan, your ability to say, okay, that didn't go the way that I thought it was going to go, and that is okay. I will figure out another way, or I will figure out another option. How resilient are you in the face of adversity? Conversations can get messy. People are messy. We are not cookie cutter. Everything does not always go according to plan. When things get messy, can you bounce back? Can you repair? Can you find your way through that tangled web of emotions or feelings or misunderstandings or miscommunications? Can you work on being resilient and being able to come back from setbacks? Because everything is not going to go according to plan. And we need to flex that muscle of being able to say, okay, that didn't go the way that I thought it was going to go, and that's fine. Let's figure out another way. That's fine. Let's work on a different outcome for the future. It's crucial to ensure that we don't let one setback completely derail everything. We don't want to let one setback completely derail us or completely stop us from having that difficult conversation, from saying the hard things. we can bounce back and we can repair if things didn't go the way that we wanted them to go. So all 4 of these elements of emotional intelligence are incredibly important. The first one, self-awareness and our ability to control our own emotions. The second point, our awareness of others and our ability to recognize their emotions, or to recognize when they might be getting triggered or flooded or a little bit overwhelmed, and then saying, okay, it's all right to tap out. It's all right to take a break. It's all right to put a pin in this conversation for the time being. And then the third element, how flexible can you be in the face of changing circumstances? How adaptable are you when things come up that throw off your plans? And then finally, how well do you bounce back if something did not go your way? How resilient are you? Working on all 4 of these things can help ensure that every single one of your conversations and every single time you attempt to communicate with somebody can go at least a little bit better. And all of those things, the self-awareness, the awareness of others, the ability to be flexible and to adapt, and the ability to be resilient and repair, none of those things are the words that are coming out of your mouth. None of those things are the body language that you are using in your conversations. But all of those things are crucial parts to being able to have an effective, productive, successful conversation. So we need to be aware of not just the words that are coming out of our mouth, our ability to listen, and our body language. There's a whole host of aspects of emotional intelligence that are incredibly important and vital for us to be able to have effective, productive communication. So that's all I've got for you today on emotional intelligence. Drop a comment below if you've got any questions about what I said, or if you'd like me to expound on anything further. And I wish you more effective, productive conversations in the future.